CarolinaPrepper.com. If you're looking for quality food storage for hiking, fishing, hunting, basic survival needs, or just for everyday use, check out our food storage line at CarolinaPrepper.com. We also carry other fine quality products, such as our can-can concealment holsters for men and women. Keeping your firearm under cover and within reach puts confidence in your hands in any situation. Our products are 100% American-made. Check us out today at CarolinaPrepper.com.
Knowles on the news. Susan Knowles.
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad that you could be here. I want to talk about a lot of things today in the news, and especially I want to start with talking to you about what happened yesterday in New York City. As you probably heard, there was a terrorist attack, and yes, this time they were actually calling it a terrorist attack. Didn't want to in the very beginning, I think. Wanted to kind of make it look like it was just an argument gone bad. It turns out that it wasn't an argument gone bad. It was actually a terrorist, a person who had come here on a diversity visa 7 years ago, that we're told, from Uzbekistan, and he had a green card, 29 years old. He ran over 8 people in a bike lane, killing them and injuring 11 others. And this guy, we're told he rented a Home Depot truck and basically mowed these people down on Halloween. People minding their own business. And some sad stories, coming out of that. These people from Argentina were among the ones that had died. They were all friends, and they were gone, to New York City to kind of celebrate. I believe somebody said they were wearing Libre shirts. It means freedom. And they were all there sort of celebrating together and again, having a great time, minding their own business. And here comes, I don't know what's better to describe it, a demon, a terrorist, somebody who is possessed and not human. I don't know. I don't know the right word for scum, terrorist. Maybe just those words. I don't know. But we were told that he ran them over with a Home Depot truck and then eventually crashed into a school bus. He had, according to reports, a paintball and pellet guns. And the police shot him twice. And now he's in custody. And, in the very beginning, though, they wanted it to look like when they were actually allowing themselves to say terrorists, they wanted to make it look like this was another lone wolf, this one guy that just, not connected to anything, anybody, he just went bad. We don't know why, he just kind of went bad. Well, as it turns out, we're also told there was a note found that said the attack was done for ISIS. And when the guy got out of the van, out of the truck, he yelled, Allahu Akbar. So I don't know what more you need. For me, just merely running down people with a truck is pretty close to all I would need. The Allahu Akbar would have capped it off for me. But I guess we needed to have more information saying, here's a note, I did it from ISIS. And I'm sure the wheels are going to be set in motion now with his attorneys trying to say, oh, well, this was nothing more than somebody who was just angry, and not really a terrorist, but he's insane, and so therefore you should let him off. Good luck with all that, because I don't think that's going to happen. Because we're also finding out now that he planned this attack for weeks. And it's been said that he followed the ISIS playbook to the T. Wow, does that mean that other possible lone wolves could do the same thing? If this guy was following the playbook, maybe everybody else that's been doing that has as well. Again, I take you right back to Las Vegas, how it was so quickly dismissed by the FBI and the sheriff that this had nothing to do with ISIS. How do we know this man wasn't also carrying out the ISIS playbook to the T. In my opinion, it sure appeared like there was a possibility, let me just say, as I've told you in the past, it needs to be investigated. And if you go to SUSANKNOWLES.com, you will see on my website articles that I've written about the Las Vegas shooting and quoting 3 sources at least, and one that I had on my show in regards to the fact that they believe this was ISIS connected. So why is it that we always, we meaning the FBI, the law enforcement, and the government seems to always want to look the other way? When are we going to stop looking the other way and say, here's the reality, folks. We've got ISIS-connected people in our country. And if we don't get them out of here, if we don't wise up, if we don't start watching out for our own safety, this is the life that we're going to have to live with. Now, I'm not happy with that. I'm not going to be resigning myself to just saying, well, shoot, this happens every now and then. I can't ride my bike in the bike lane. I can't do anything anymore. I've got to be looking over my shoulder because we need to continue to allow people in here. No, we don't. And thank God for President Trump that he's going to get rid of the diversity visas. Thank God. Should have been done a long time ago. But what do we have? We have people like Jeff Flake, who, recently said, I'm not going to run for re-election, which is a good thing because he wasn't going to win. He had about as big a chance of winning as a gnat. So he decides I'm not going to run for re-election, but I'm going to stay here for the next 14 months. And every opportunity I get, I'm going to come out against the president. And what did he do? He came out after the president said something about, Chuck Schumer being responsible for what happened in New York City because, wanting people in the city who are from other countries, potentially dangerous to us. Jeff Flake had to remind the president. I mean, I guess John McCain's busy. Lindsey Graham's busy today. So Jeff Flake is stepping up, quote unquote, for them and had to remind the president that Schumer, being a member of the Gang of Eight, that great Gang of Eight who was trying to reform immigration. Well, it seems that Schumer wrote a part of that, what the Gang of Eight was trying to do. And the part that he wrote was about getting rid of the diversity visas, which is great to know. Thank you for reminding us, Flake. I know you didn't mean to remind us in a positive way for the president, but you actually bolstered his case in saying we need to get rid of it. And you bolstered his case in the event there are any Democrats who want to run and say, oh, no, we can't allow the president to do this and run into court and try to get an injunction. Because you've just told us this is what the Democrats wanted, specifically even Chucky Schumer. So thank you. Again, you didn't mean to be a help, but you were, and probably the biggest help you've been since you've been in Congress. So thank you. Now leave. Leave early. We want you to go. There's got to be a time where Americans have said we've had enough. Now, a person that is an independent journalist, Laura Loomer, went on last night on Periscope, and she walked down the streets of New York City, basically calling out Muslims in general, kind of lumping them all together. But I get her, she was upset. I get what she was doing. I don't necessarily agree with it. I agree with it. We need to have the conversation, but not every Muslim is a terrorist. And she was trying to get somebody on the street to just, somebody who was, this one lady was wearing a hijab, obviously Muslim. Hijab kind of gave it away. But she was trying to get her to call out the fact that this guy was a terrorist and that she didn't condone what had happened. Now, again, I understand what Laura was trying to do, but this woman owes Laura zero. Doesn't have to do what she's asking her to do. And the woman ended up, she was with the New York Times. Well, of course. And Laura did have a good point, though, that it seemed like the New York Times was sort of insensitive about what just happened in this terrorist attack when they sent somebody who was obviously Muslim down to kind of cover it. And you can have your thoughts either way on that. I mean, the Muslim woman should not be penalized because she happens to be Muslim and is investigating a crime that, potentially, allegedly, whatever, happened by a Muslim. And we know, I mean, we can't say for sure, that he did it because, again, these are still allegations. Until he's convicted, they're still allegations. But read between the lines. So I think we do need to open up. We do need to have these conversations. We have a president, thank God. As I said again, thank God, who understands the issue, who understands that the United States is in danger. I don't think people are willing right now, the government's not willing to say, you know what, we got a lot of these people here in the United States that are here to do us harm, that people, especially in the Obama administration, weren't willing to call terrorists, weren't even willing to call them lone wolves for a while. Those people are here, and we've got to do something about it. And this is what I'm trying to do as your president. And I really do think that's what he's trying to do. And all the Democrats who are going out and saying, no, he's just prejudiced, he's just this, he's just that. You know what? It's time that you sat down and shut up. I hate to be so blunt, but I've had enough of the talk, and I'm sure that you have too. I've heard enough of, Donald Trump is just a racist, he's a white supremacist, he's this, he's that. No, Donald Trump has a good head on his shoulders, and so do most Americans who know, because common sense would tell them that things like this are happening. We see it all the time. We saw it yesterday, right? And something needs to be done about it. So let's cut the BS, shall we? And let's start looking at what needs to be done. And Donald Trump is leading the way again. He's leading the way and trying to protect Americans, even though that there are some that are just so dead set against it. And you have to wonder what their whole reasoning is behind it. Are they, elitists and globalists that kind of like this? Because remember, when there's chaos and that keeps us distracted, the globalists and elitists can do whatever they want to do. And as long as there's chaos, they're needed. That gives them power. So in the coming weeks, let's make sure that our president knows that we support him. Let's let Congress know that we support them getting tougher laws when it comes to immigration, and this is their area. And I like the fact that the president said, you know what, we're gonna up the vetting. We're gonna do extreme vetting. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much for caring about the people of the United States when those in some of the states, California, don't care about their people as they should, and New York as well. What do I mean by that? Let's just say the word sanctuary city and sanctuary state. And protecting those that are here illegally. Now, not all of them here that they're protecting are here to do us harm. But we don't know that now, do we? We don't know which ones are which. We haven't vetted them. And I think it's high time. Mr. Sessions, this is for you. U.S. Attorney General Sessions. It's high time that we quit talking about what you're going to do to those people and those states that are insisting on being a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state. Mr. Sessions, you can go after them and you can withhold their federal funding, but I think you need to do more. It is time for you to go out there and tell these mayors and these governors, you're going to be arrested when you enforce the breaking of the laws of our immigration laws of this country. And I sincerely mean that. It's high time that people who insist on breaking the laws of the United States are put in jail for it, are tried, convicted, and put in jail. No more, well, we're going to take away your federal funds. That's not good enough. They don't care. Because what they will do is they will fight you in court ad nauseum. It will go on forever. Meantime, the citizens of the state will be killed, like what happened yesterday. And I know people are going to say, yeah, but, New York is a sanctuary city. Let's not kid ourselves. And he was here under a visa. What else are we going to find out about him? I don't know. But you can't vet somebody properly when you don't even know who they are, when you don't even care who they are, when you're willing to allow them to come into your state and impact negatively the people of your state. It tells me you don't care. Well, I do care. And Jeff Sessions, you need to do more. You need to go out, as I said, you need to bring down the law on these mayors and governors and any other state and federal officials who would obstruct justice by deciding that they are not going to follow federal immigration law. Period. Let's do it, Jeff. Let's do it. I tell you, sometimes what you hear in the news is enough to really get your blood boiling, isn't it? Get your blood pressure up. It's good for you. I want to switch subjects and talk about Paul Manafort. I know you know about the indictments that came down this week. And if you don't know, if you're just, sometimes we hear things and we say, okay, an indictment, I don't really know what that's about. I don't know really what we're talking about here. What are we looking at? Just give me the bottom line. Tell me what we're looking at. Well, if you listen to the left, all you're going to know is that President Trump is guilty of collusion with Russia. Now, that's so far from the truth, and it has nothing to do with Manafort, but when does the truth really matter to progressives on the left? It really doesn't matter. But if you want to know the truth, I'm going to try to explain it to you the best way that I know how, and the way that I know what is truth right now and what we've been told. There were 12 counts that came down regarding Paul Manafort. And I just want to briefly go through them. Counts 1 and 2. Count 1 is conspiracy against the United States, impeding, impairing, obstructing lawful function of the DOJ and the Department of Treasury. And it's like, whoa, wait, what are you talking about? That sounds horrible. Well, yeah, it is pretty bad. But it's kind of misleading because when you hear that, you're thinking, my gosh, what in the world did he possibly do against the DOJ that was a conspiracy against the entire United States? Are you kidding me? Well, what it boils down to in plain English is they're looking at him as sort of like tax fraud, tax evasion, that type of thing. And that supposedly occurred between 2006 and 2017. Number 2, count number 2, money laundering. Wire transfers, etc., in and out of the United States, 2006 to 2016. That's the time frame that they're looking at on that one. Now, counts 3 through 6. Failure to file reports of foreign bank and financial accounts, the calendar years of 2011 to 2014, and the same thing for calendar year 2011 to 2013. That was 3 through 6, and the second part was 7 through 9. The same thing, failure to file reports of foreign banks and financial accounts. So that's counts 1 through 9. Count 10, unregistered agent of a foreign principal. Calendar year 2008 to 2014. So what does that mean? It's he failed to register as a foreign agent is what they're saying. So he failed to register when he was doing business with Russia. That's exactly what they're saying. And again, that everything that I just talked about, with the exception of count 1, was done before President Trump was even candidate Trump in the presidential election of 2016. Now, here's where the Trump administration comes into play Sorta, but not really. Counts 11 and 12. Count 11. False and misleading FARA statements, that's a failure to register as a foreign agent, to the DOJ, November 23, 2016 to February 10, 2017. And false statements, November 23, 2016 to 2017. That's the only two counts, 11 and 12, that really have anything to do with the president. Because according to what the counts are, he lied. They're saying he lied to the DOJ. He lied in answering statements about his dealings. That's all it is. So, folks, that's all it was. Anything that the left told you differently and telling you this was all about Trump and Trump's ought to be scared and Trump this and Trump that had nothing to do with him. So that was all against Paul Manafort in his dealings before the presidential election, before he was the campaign manager, except, like I said, potentially 11 and 12. And his associate, Rick Gates. So they're kind of looking at it and seeing what are all the dealings that you did with Russia? What are all the things that you didn't pay taxes on? We want to know. What were the wire transfers that you were doing? Were you money laundering? That's what they want to know. So, again, in looking at the dates, they were really all before the election. Except with conspiracy against the United States and the possibility of money laundering and the wire transfers, because that does go to 2016. But President Trump isn't named in the indictment. Neither is Vice President Pence or anybody else in the Trump administration. But we have the left coming out. They just thought this was like the best news they ever had. They started name-calling Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, dressing her up on Twitter in a Nazi uniform complete with a swastika, saying that she's just a shill for Trump, basically lying for him. She knows she's lying. She knows he's a liar, on and on and on. Now, all of that kind of stopped and everything kind of fell silent when it was learned kind of later in the day that Tony Podesta, you might remember that last name, Podesta, because John Podesta was the campaign manager for the Hillary Clinton campaign. Tony Podesta is his brother. And Tony Podesta found out that the special counsel Mueller, Robert Mueller, was sort of eyeballing Tony Podesta. No indictment, but that he was kind of investigating, if you will, Tony Podesta. So Tony says, since I'm a member of the Podesta group with my brother John, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to step down. I'm going to resign right now because I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about him. Meaning what, really the president. He wants it to be about the president. So he's going to step down. He doesn't want it to be about the Podesta group. He doesn't want them to have any problems. And he's just going to let them carry on without him. Isn't that nice? And we also learned that this whole thing with the Podesta group, they have been planning, they say, for months to just kind of revamp the entire company, make it something totally different, I guess. And we know we're hearing rumors that there may be more indictments coming. I have some guesses, but they're only guesses at this point. I mean, what would make sense would be Flynn, because they've looked at Flynn and his dealings with the Russians. It could be the Podesta group because it is connected to Tony Podesta. You'd want to know, looking at the books, where the money went. Was there money that was sent to Russia or any place else? So that's a possibility. And it's a possibility that they would look at John Podesta because he's connected with the Podesta group and Tony Podesta. But I don't know if that's likely or not. I mean, what should be going on? Oh, let's see. Hillary Clinton, President Obama, Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch, James Comey. Robert Mueller himself, perhaps. I mean, shouldn't all these people be called in? You know, I kind of talked to you, I believe it was last week. We talked about uranium one, so I won't go over it again. But it's curious, at the least for me, when I look at all of this and I say, wow, so all of these counts that came down against Manafort occurred during the same time period when Mueller was the director of the FBI. He was director from 2001 to 2013. That was during the time of Uranium One, where he was in charge of an investigation against racketeering scheme regarding the Russians. And he was also in charge during the time when supposedly these things happened with Manafort. And we're kind of learning that, you know, during Uranium One, all that information was known about the racketeering and that it happened and what the Russians were doing and how they were bribing, extorting Americans and on and on and on. And they may have held, they being the FBI, the DOJ, may have held back information before the signing of the Uranium One sale. And we're finding out that there may have been an investigation being done during all these things, you know, from 2006 until 2013 and on, but at least during those years, and maybe 1 year, maybe 2012, somewhere in there, when, again, Robert Mueller was the FBI director. Now, do I think that all this is connected and that Robert Mueller is guilty of something? You know what? I don't know. You know why? Because we have a man, Robert Mueller, who is riddled with conflicts of interest. I've said this to you, I know, numerous times. From the very beginning, his relationship with Comey, his working relationship, long-term working relationship, long-term friendship, and yet he is the special counsel that actually brought in, interviewed, if you will, Comey in regards to Russian interference with the election. And that's such a farce these days because the whole thing about Manafort and the charges that were brought against him, that really, he found nothing in connection with Russian interference with the election. At least not yet. But we went back to 2006, even before the election, and trying to get him for tax fraud. Well, that wasn't your job. That wasn't the scope of why you were hired. And once again, we have Rosenstein that should be saying, whoa, wait a minute. I wanted you to look at the election. Remember, it was all about interference with the election, with the Russians doing all that interfering. So why are you going way out here back to 2006? Let me just do the math for you. That's, I don't know, 10 years? 10 years away from when the election took place. Nobody said, not a peep coming from anybody. And nobody from the right. Nobody from the right is saying, whoa, back it up here. What is this? You're not doing what you were hired to do. You're way outside the scope. And one has to wonder why. Why nobody's stepping up? Why are the Republicans silent about all this? And here's another question. Why is it that either Jeff Sessions or someone else doesn't call for a special prosecutor or counselor, if you so prefer that over a prosecutor, in regards to Hillary Clinton? Let's look at Uranium One. Let's look at Robert Mueller's role in Uranium One. Let's look at Eric Holder's role in Uranium One. And let's not forget Rod Rosenstein, who really now has a conflict of interest in ever having appointed Robert Mueller in the first place, because Rod Rosenstein was the guy that Mueller put in charge of an investigation regarding the Russian racketeering scheme before the Uranium One deal was ever signed. Do you see how all these people are interconnected? And I know some people are saying, but Susan, Robert Mueller is doing such a great job. He really is. Look, I mean, he's going after Manafort. Yeah, I know it's for tax evasion, but he's going after Manafort, and he's going after George Papadopoulos, this volunteer who suddenly is becoming so important. But that guy already pled guilty to lying, making false statements to Mueller. But he's getting Rick Gates, who was an associate of Manafort, and we haven't done the indictment yet, but it's coming. We know it's coming in regards to Tony Podesta. So you should be happy. You should be happy that this guy is doing. Just let him do his job, and let's see what he comes up with. Well, we know what he's going to come up with. I mean, you can't go back and talk about Uranium One when you were part of it. And you may be thinking, yeah, but, Uranium One, that has nothing to do with the election. Really? Well, did 2006 and tax fraud have anything to do with the election then? I mean, that's what they're getting Manafort for. That's what they're putting in the indictment. So how can you say it doesn't? How can you say that what happened in Uranium One didn't tick some people off? Because remember, some of these people were indicted and convicted, the Russians, of what they were doing. So I don't know. Maybe there was an interference with our election, if there was one, because the Russians were upset and they didn't want Hillary to win. Or maybe they did want Hillary to win because, look, she gave them Uranium One. She gave them 20% of our uranium. Why wouldn't you want her to win and hopefully get even more? I mean, everybody on the left keeps looking at this. Well, there was a Russian interference with the election because they didn't want Hillary to be president. Maybe they did want Hillary to be president, so they could continue to, I don't know, give more speaking engagements to Bill that were twice the amount of money he normally gets paid. Maybe more donations were going to be coming into the Clinton Foundation, like they had allegedly been doing before by some of these transactions. Why are we not looking at that? And if you think it's okay for what Mueller is doing, and you're happy with Mueller, then you would be happy, I'm assuming, if Eric Holder, the former Attorney General, if he were put in place as a special counsel to look into Uranium One, to look into what Hillary's role was in that, whether she knew or didn't know about the Russian racketeering scheme and went ahead anyway and said, this is a great deal, let's sign it. And on and on and on. And the donations and the speaking engagements and all that. So you would be happy with Eric Holder being special counsel. It's almost the same thing because he was involved in Uranium One, just like Robert Mueller, in which I said, again, may have some connection to any interference with the election with the Russians. We don't know. We haven't looked at it. And I haven't heard a peep since the Manafort indictment came down. We've been very quiet about wanting to have a special counselor assigned to look into Hillary and the Clinton Foundation and the Russians and on and on. So once again, the GOP are being reactive and not proactive. That never gets us anywhere. By not being proactive in the first place, got us to where we are right now. I think day one, Jeff Sessions, anybody, Congress, should have called for a special counselor to be appointed to investigate Hillary in Uranium One all the way through up to the election. And now, with the dossier and Fusion GPS, we're learning that there's a lawsuit that's been filed by the FEC saying that they feel that the Clinton campaign and the DNC and who knows who else, but those two may have violated campaign finance rules in regards to the dossier, in regards, again, to trying to dig up dirt about Trump, President Trump, and Russia. It's all Russia, Russia, Russia. I mean, if you look back, start with Uranium One. There's Russia. And it just keeps going forward. The dossier, Russia. The election, Russia. Well, the common theme here is Russia. Everything's about Russia. So to say that they're not connected with each other, I think is, if you were an FBI agent, would you really say this is not connected? Let's just forget about it. A good FBI agent's not going to say that. They're going to look for a connection. And they're going to see what's been done. And let's not forget that there are accusations now that uranium that wasn't supposed to leave the United States has in fact left the United States and went to Russia. And Russia gave it to Iran, perhaps. My theories, I've told you before, they gave it, if that's true, then it would have been given to Iran to be used against Israel. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out, too. Or I should say a rocket scientist to figure that out, because it's just so obvious. So we're not looking at that. We're still at the place of, gosh, this Robert Mueller, he's so great. He's just a wonderful guy. He is so above the law, in that he's so respectable. He's been doing this forever. I mean, look, he worked under Bush. He worked under Obama. He's just great. And I love it when people say to me, Susan, he's a registered Republican. Well, one, I don't know how you know that, but even if he is, I don't really care. I don't care if he's a registered, independent. It doesn't matter to me. He's got too many connections to Russia to be doing an investigation on Russia, especially on things that he potentially had his hand in. And, I look at all this and say, why weren't you investigating starting in at least 2007 on some of these things that you say he was doing, Manafort was doing in 2006? Why didn't you start your investigation then? Why did you wait possibly 6 years before starting an investigation? And if that's true, then you're looking at Robert Mueller, who got paid as an FBI director, is now getting doubly paid as a special prosecutor for the job he didn't do as an FBI director. I mean, it's you get my point. I'm being sarcastic a little bit with that, but you get my point. And this guy, George Papadopoulos, who supposedly, again, was this volunteer that maybe met the president once. They're going to make this guy into anything that they can possibly make him into. He's an undercover spy for the FBI. He was infiltrated the Trump administration. He held this senior position. I mean, they're going to make him look like that this guy was running for the president himself. That he was that important. I don't know who he was. I don't know why he was trying to set up all of these appointments with Russia. I guess that's something that Mueller will need to, since the guy's pled guilty for lying, you would think that Mueller knows the information now. So what was it? And I saw today it said Mueller next is going to be talking to Hope Hicks, the communication director for the Trump administration. And as you might recall, she had another job during the campaign, similar to what she's doing, but it wasn't the exact same position. And we were told that they're going to talk to her after the president gets back from his trip to Asia, which he's leaving on November the 3rd and coming back, I think, the 14th. It's going to be going on about 11 days, long time. And that he's already spoken, supposedly, Mueller has, with Sean Spicer, the former White House press secretary, who, by the way, was not and never could be as good as Sarah Huckabee Sanders has been. She's been amazing. And they've also supposedly talked to Reince Priebus. So after talking to these people that are in the administration and, in the past, now we're going to current people, there's no indictment of the president. There's no indictment of anybody else higher up after talking to Spicer and Priebus. I mean, you would think that those people, if anybody, would have some dirt, right, on the president and would have come forward, and at least would have come forward enough to have seen an indictment. Again, we're chasing things that don't exist. And remember, this whole thing was started. This whole special counsel was appointed based upon a salacious dossier that came from a British intelligence officer that was getting paid and probably got, whatever dirt he could dig up. He got paid more for whatever dirt he could get. So, I mean, take it, let's look at it this way. If you were in Russia and you needed some money and somebody comes to you, intelligence officer. Now, I don't know if he said, hey, I'm an intelligence officer, let me ask some questions. But he probably paid these people for information, would be my guess. Maybe, maybe not. But if you got paid, aren't you going to kind of say whatever? And if you're the guy who's getting paid for as much information as you can get from somebody else, what's to stop you from digging it up and making it up? I mean, how do we know that what he wrote down? Why we're supposed to believe this British intelligence officer because why? He said so? Have we vetted him? Did we see who he is? Do we know his credentials? I mean, who is this guy? And I'll tell you, for somebody who, like James Comey, former FBI director, who is Mr. Man of the hour, I'm on top of everything. The FBI is in my hands. The world is safe. What does he do? He takes this same dossier and says to this guy, go out and give me some more information on Trump, and we'll just keep this investigation going. So you, as the FBI director, took information that was paid for by the Clinton campaign, the DNC, and the Obama Organizing for America, that we're being told that all three of those combined paid about $12 million. Man, get me to do a dossier for you. Pay me $12 million. I'll give you a dossier, and I'll give you a truthful one as long as you pay me the $12,000. I mean, that's not a bad payday whatsoever. And surely the FBI paid him. Had to give him something, right? To go out and continue investigating. Now, does that not seem odd to you that an FBI director whose job it is to investigate people would leave that up to a former British intelligence officer and just take his word for it? Not even maybe going out yourself and doing some groundwork just to make sure if that's what you wanted to do. I mean, personally, I can't see an FBI director relying on another organization or another person without first doing some type of vetting and being darn sure that this person is legitimate, or at least not relying, wholeheartedly on one piece of evidence. And I don't know if Comey went out and did his own investigation afterwards. I haven't heard anything that suggests that he did. The whole thing is just it's just bizarre in a lot of respects. I mean, it really is. So it's going to be interesting to hear what else comes out of all of this. Again, look for George Papadopoulos, at least as far as the left is concerned, to be dropping some major information. I just wish that we had started this out in the beginning the right way. And that is, at least if we wanted to take salacious information and use it to appoint a special counsel, that we would have gotten somebody that had nothing whatsoever to do with any of this. And by any of this, I mean Russia, the elections, having been in the position. Get somebody else. Get an independent person that can do the job, that has been vetted or used before, and let them do it. But we didn't do that. And again, we're playing catch-up. We always play catch-up on the right. We just do. I don't know if we know how to do anything better. I really don't, because we wait to see what happens, and then we go out and say, well, I guess we better do this. And don't worry, because Lindsey Graham has your back on all of this. He came out yesterday and said, there'll be hell to pay if Robert Mueller is removed. Now, again, the president's never said, I'm going to remove Robert Mueller. This has been all the speculation on the left, and the wacky Congress people that we have on the right, like Lindsey Graham, thinking, oh, well, I better get out there and say something. I want my 15 minutes of fame, so I got to say something. And I'm just going to say there'll be hell to pay if he's removed. Well, thanks, Lindsey. Now, why don't you go back and try to find something to do? As this just gets more and more, we go down the road. And I know that people are wondering, people meaning the American public, you, me, like, what do we do? How do we get this moving? Well, you're going to have to ask for a special prosecutor. You really are. Regardless of what Mueller does at this point. And don't think, well, I'll wait and see if our taxpayer dollars, maybe he'll just go ahead and get Hillary and start, indicting her and everything's going to be fine. No, don't even go there. Don't even think that's going to happen. It's not a good place to be. Go and ask for a special counsel right now to be appointed to investigate everything, or get several of them. I mean, let's just find the connections, connect the dots, cross the T's, dot the I's. And we need to be looking at, here's who we need to be looking at. Right now, we need to go back and look at Uranium One, that whole deal. What was that all about? Was that the starting point for all of this? And I tell you, I've got this sneaking suspicion there may be a connection with what's being said about a possible interference with the election. And the connection has absolutely nothing to do with Donald Trump. But here are the cast of characters that need to be investigated under a special counsel appointed to look at Uranium One. Eric Holder, former FBI Director Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein, Hillary Clinton, Obama, and possibly Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton, as to see what kind of monies Bill got, why did he get those monies, and that's going to lead us over to the Clinton Foundation, what kind of monies went in there, and Loretta Lynch, what kind of, if anything, did she have to do with any transfers of uranium after the deal and after Eric Holder left. So we got a lot of people there to look at that we haven't even started looking at them, and nobody's saying that we're going to look at them. But we're giving them more and more time just to, I don't know, clean out their files, use some bleach like Hillary did before, things like that. We're just letting time just go right on by. And I know some people are thinking, but we have the House intel and the Senate intel that they're going to be looking into some stuff in regards to that. I'm sorry. We have seen so many of these dog and pony shows that go nowhere. I mean, how long did we watch Trey Gowdy with Benghazi? And it went nowhere. They don't typically go anywhere. They really just don't. And so to just go out and do that again, it's a waste of time. Let's get a special counsel appointed. Let's try it. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know who's independent anymore. We certainly can't get anybody who in past administrations. I really don't think so. Or anybody that could possibly be connected with what's going on from Uranium One all the way up through today. If you know of anybody, maybe you should volunteer them. And that's going to take, with Jeff Sessions, I don't know if he's going to do anything, because anything that has the R word, meaning Russia, he shies away from that. I don't even think that. I think the man has removed Russia from his vocabulary so he can make sure he doesn't do anything wrong. But I think that Congress certainly has the authority and the power to appoint a special counsel. We have to just keep putting pressure on them to do that. And not wait to see what Mueller does. See, what my concern is, too, is at the end of this, if there is an end for Mueller, and he claims that the interviews, at least, with the people in the administration are going to be done by Thanksgiving. And that doesn't mean he's not going to find something new to investigate, because, again, he's been given carte blanche to do just about anything, although that's way outside the scope. And just so you know, you the taxpayer, you're gladly giving him this money. I'm saying that sarcastically. Money, again, that some of this investigation, you've already paid the FBI, former FBI Director Robert Mueller. He's already been paid once for what we're paying him again to do. And don't forget all the attorneys. But we need answers. We have nobody to rein this guy in. And my concern at the end is, at the end of the day, if everything is resolved to, our satisfaction, to the president's satisfaction, the president's going to say, let's move on. I mean, it's kind of what he said in the very beginning, let's move on. Well, by doing that, again, look at where we ended up. In my opinion, day one, right after the inauguration, you go and you get a team going to dig up all this information on Hillary and all the cast of characters that I told you about. And then you get started on it. And, it would have been, I think, a really different outcome than where we are even to this point had we done that. They would be on the defense. We would be on the offense. But we need to get out of the always covering the rear, the GOP's rear and everybody else's. We need to stop doing that. Quit being reactive. Start being proactive. I don't understand that. It's always this ideology from the GOP thinking, if I just move on, let bygones be bygones, everything's going to be okay, and we'll move on as an undivided country. Not going to happen. It's never happened. And there's no reason to believe, no rational reason to believe that it's going to happen ever, when it's never happened before. But I know the GOP, they just keep hoping, and they just keep losing when they do that. And it's always funny, too, in regards a little bit to this dossier, is that the press recently went out and started talking to Tom Perez, who is the chairman of the DNC, and they're trying to, ask questions. You got this lawsuit that's filed against you, and they want to know answers. The press wants answers, right? So they're sitting there saying, well, okay, so Mr. Perez, tell us how much money, was spent on this dossier, because there's still a question about it. And it's funny, he knew every single answer, really, about everything, it seemed. And I'm talking everything in the world, right? Even the president, his connection with Russia, he's convinced the president's guilty. He knew all that, but he couldn't tell them how much money was spent on this dossier. And before, they were really kind of like, what dossier? What are you talking about? We didn't, who? Everybody wanted to go, I don't know what you're talking about. But he doesn't know how much money was spent, because why? He said, in his words, he hasn't desegregated that yet. What? And he was talking about how this dossier, really, like if you didn't do a dossier, like if you didn't dig up dirt on your opponent, he actually said it's malpractice. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, so you're going to tell me that the DNC in the past that every time there's an election, they go and they dig up dirt on their opponent, right? Well, I mean, we should be seeing that. I would really love to see what they've found out in the past elections. That would be great, don't you think? How much? And I want to know how much money they've paid for it. I want to know also, did they obey the campaign finance rules? Because I mean, he just said it'd be malpractice if you didn't have it, and he also wanted to make it really clear to everybody that he was not the chairperson at the time that all of this happened. So let's distance ourselves as quickly and as fast as we can. I mean, these people never stop. If this were, I mean, they haven't stopped about Trump's tax forms. They want to see what his tax returns are, right? But they can't even tell you how much money they spent on getting a dossier, drumming up dirt. And the fact that they went and got this information, well, it may be, tacky, whatever you want to call it. That's not the problem. What the problem is that they spent money that they may not have appropriately told the feds, and in violation of campaign finance laws. They kind of said stuff like, "Oh, this was for legal research," or something of that order, and we don't even know who said that because nobody seems to know anything about it. So it's one of those things where we're going to have to take 3-4 years, I don't know, to try to figure out who said what to whom. I feel bad for this attorney because even Trey Gowdy says, it kind of looks like there was money laundering going on through this attorney and through his law firm to have things done. Now, I don't know if he meant that seriously, but you never know. And usually he doesn't say things like that unless he's pretty serious about it. So I think it's going to be, again, one of those things. If we could ever just start looking at things and at people on the left and determining what really happened. It's not that we're going to be surprised, but what it's going to be would be so much fun just to see the truth come out for once. I mean, just to hear the truth for once coming out of the progressive left would be wonderful. It really would be wonderful. But, don't hold your breath. I don't really think that's necessarily going to be what happens. And even with this FEC, somebody somewhere, again, with Perez saying, I haven't desegregated this, so I don't know how much it is. So you're telling me, okay, yes, we know you didn't have anything to do with it because you weren't the chairperson. Okay. But you're going to tell me that not conducting an audit to find out how much money was spent and knowing that information and at least starting the audit by now is not your responsibility, and that's not malpractice? Oh, these people, they really do weave such a tangled web, don't they? They really do. They're going to have to answer to the FEC, or at least most law-abiding citizens would. I don't know what's going to happen with this. But they're going to have to come forward with who did what, how much money was given, who didn't provide the information to the feds that they should have had given to them in regards to the money that was spent, and allegations in regards to the campaign finance, what wasn't done properly and who did it. Let's just boil it down to that. And how much money did you spend on it? Eventually, this has got to come out. But it may take a long time because, again, who knows what these people are going to come up with to try to obstruct the feds from getting this information for this lawsuit. I mean, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. And, of course, Hillary's going to say, I don't even know what you're talking about. What dossier are we talking about? What attorney? So anyway, sometimes you just have to laugh because if you don't, it's the reality of it all is just sometimes too harsh. You just lose your mind if you don't have a little sense of humor. So, but anyway, I thank you so much for being here. I hope this has helped you today in some of the confusing things that have been going on with this dossier, Uranium One, et cetera, et cetera. I'm glad you were here. I'm so glad that you support the show. Until next week, take care of yourself. God bless you. We'll see you again next week. Take care.